We're going to go ahead and remove or unclick the 3 retainer tabs here. Right there, and there's one in the back. I'm going to go ahead and remove this bolt right here. That is a 13 millimeter, and there would normally be one here, but ours is missing one. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that bolt. Pop this hose off. Using an 8 millimeter socket, we're going to go ahead and loosen this hose clamp here and this one right here. This tube that we just connected from the air box comes over here to the side of the oil fill neck. I'm just going to slide that off and set this aside. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull this unit up. It might be easier if we pop this and then separate this, set this aside. Grab the air filter lid here. If you can, pull the whole unit right up and out. I'm going to go ahead and start by disconnecting our battery here, using a 10 millimeter. Pop that off. We're going to disconnect our negative as well. On top of the alternator, we have this gray connector. You want to go ahead and pinch on the spring tab on the top. Pinch it, wiggle it up, and disconnect. Let's go ahead and remove this plastic cap by pinching these 2 tabs and pull up. Spin that aside, and then using a 13 millimeter socket and ratchet, we're going to go ahead, loosen that nut. I'm going to spin that off. Be careful not to drop that nut. I'm going to remove this. There's a washer on the top as well. Disconnect the wire. We're going to put the washer and the nut right back on so we don't lose that. Using a 15 millimeter socket and ratchet, we're going to go ahead and remove this lower bolt here. Let's go ahead and remove this nut right here. That is a 13 millimeter. Let's go ahead and get our socket and ratchet on there. And there's another 13 millimeter nut down here, the bottom of this bracket. We're going to go ahead and remove that there. So here we switched over to a deep socket and we're able to get a little bit more clearance on the front side. And then we'll go for the other 13 millimeter nut right here. And go ahead and remove this one. On the front of the bracket, there is a bolt head right here. There's also a 13. Let's go ahead and take that out. Let's go ahead and remove this bracket. I'm going to go ahead and use a 15 millimeter deep socket and a ratchet on this alternator bolt right here. I'm going to go ahead and remove this bolt. We're using a swivel head ratchet to get in there a little bit better. Let's see if we can reach down there and spin that out. And that bolt should come out with a washer as well. Be careful not to drop it when you remove the bolt. I'm going to use a small pry bar between the alternator and the bracket and just gently work this up. And with the alternator loose on one side, we'll go ahead and work out that other mounting bolt to come out a little bit easier. Now I'm going to go ahead and grab that alternator and just work it back and forth. Maybe I'll get the pry bar up underneath, work that up, back and forth. And switch to the other side here. I'm just trying to work that alternator back and forth. Now ours is stuck because the aluminum has some corrosion on it and the pivots are stuck a little bit. Now, if your car has all kinds of crud built up and leaves and stuff like that in here, you want to go ahead and try and clean this the best as possible. That way there it just kind of keeps that garbage out of there, and you don't want to have any rodents making nests out of the crumbs and leaves and whatever else is in there. So if you have a blowgun, go ahead and use that. If not, just go ahead and pick the pieces out. Just wear safety glasses if you're using your blowgun, and we'll just kind of give this a shot. Also want to make sure that you kind of protect the intake here. You don't want any garbage blowing in there as well. Let's go ahead and feed the alternator in. Just watching the wire harness in the back. I went ahead and put a little anti-seize compound on the bolt itself. And we're going to work this in. See if we can get this started a few threads. The alternator should have some sort of mobility to it here. I want to go ahead and get the front mounting bolt in there. Once we get the bolt hanging in there, I'm going to weasel my hand down inside. Going to have to grab the alternator and wiggle that around to get that pushed in. I'm going to use a pry bar just to kind of work that alternator a little bit. All right. Once you get that bolt in, just get it started a few threads. I'm going to go ahead and snug this bolt down. And do the same for the other one. So next we're going to go ahead and reinstall this bracket. I'm going to go ahead and reinstall this bolt for the bracket. Go ahead, spin that down, get it as far as you can by hand. Go ahead and install the nut on this one right here. There's one right beside it, right here. And there's one down at the bottom, right here. Once those are on, let's go ahead and snug them down. All right, go ahead and snug this one down. Just when it gets tight, just give it that little extra quarter of a turn or eighth of a turn there, and then we'll go on to the next bolt. You just want to do this for the remainder of the bolts on this plate. Then we switch over to the shallow socket for this one here, for the bolt. Now let's go ahead and remove the nut off of the alternator. I'm going to put this on. Now the tab itself goes into a lock tab right like that. And then get that nut down there. Using your 13 millimeter, I'm gonna go ahead and snug that down. Grab your retainer cap, snap that on. Then we're gonna go ahead and take this gray connector here, line that up, press that onto the alternator, and you hear an audible click once that's on. I'm gonna go ahead and install our air filter box base. We have this post right here that needs to go into this rubber bushing right here. Let's go ahead and get that installed. Once you have that installed, let's go ahead and get the bolt installed. All right, we're gonna go ahead and install the bolt for the box here. We'll go ahead and thread in a few threads, and then we'll go ahead and tighten it up. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and install our air filter, then we're going to put our lid on. Snap our clips on. Let's go ahead and install our intake tube. I'm going to put this post into the rubber grommet. And then while we're doing that, we're going to line up the intake tube here, work that on there, compress it, and we're going to work it onto the air box itself. Let's go ahead and tighten down our hose clamps. I'm going to go ahead and hook up our tube right here, press that down, and I'll reconnect the other end right here. Here we go. I'm going to go ahead and reconnect our battery now. Grab our cable, set that up in place. I'll go ahead and snug this down. Once that's snug, we'll go ahead and press this cap back into place and put our negative on.